Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat dyan sa Pilipinas at umaga naman po dito sa Houston, Texas. Ako po si Rosario Ginto, isa po akong nurse. Kabilang po ako sa isa sa mga tauhan or nagtatrabaho po bilang nurse dito sa Amerika for almost 20 years na rin po. Been working as a critical care nurse in the bedside, also in the emergency setup. I'm an ER nurse also for more than 15 years. And I am also working with one of the frontliner, one of the best frontliner doctor here in Houston, which is led by Dr. Joseph Baron. He is our chief critical care doctor. He's the chief medical director of our facility, which is the United Memorial Medical Center here in Houston, Texas. We've been dealing with COVID for so long, since last year. In our facility was been accepting so many accolades in different parts of the world because of the performance been done by Dr. Joseph Baron. I would like to introduce to you guys si Dr. Joseph Baron po ay malapit sa puso natin because he actually served our country for so long, if you may know. He's been teaching and giving some symposiums and even giving us some lectures in different parts of our community, such as hospitals like the Chinese General Hospital, Medical City in Manila, in Makati Med. He has so many colleagues as well that he's been with. At marami na rin po siyang mga natulungan na kababayan natin. He goes to the Philippines. He has so much heart and passion for Filipinas as well. He visits Philippines 3 times in a year. He loves to visit Boracay. He's a scuba diver as well. And for sure, he's a very good doctor, have a very good manner in the bedside, and very great in practice. That's what I can tell. I've been working with him for a couple of months already at the bedside, and I can assure you that we are in the great hand, you know. And I would like to introduce to you Mr. Dr. Joseph Baron, the Chief Head Medical Board of United Memorial Medical Center.
Excellent. Thank you for such a good introduction. I like particularly that, you know, you are from Houston, but you have San Francisco behind you. So that's actually the most interesting thing. And indeed, thank you for the organizers. Thank you, Congressman, for having me here today. Yes, the Philippines is in my heart. I've been going to the Philippines for the last 20 years. Since the late Bella Tan introduced me to the Philippines, and I have a small business in the Philippines. I have a production company with the son of Miss Bella Tan. We've been working together for many years. We do a lot of things, and yes, I love to go to the Philippines. And I am very annoyed that I have not been able to go to the Philippines for over a year. Today is my day 389 of continuous, non-stop work in my COVID unit. I haven't had a single day off. Can you guys imagine that? 389 continuous days. My days are anywhere between 12 and 16 hours, non-stop. And just before we started this program, they were asking me how much I sleep and stuff like that. Well, last night, if I got 2 hours of sleep, was way too much. So I'm here to answer any questions that you guys may have regarding my experience. A couple of things. Number one, I am not affiliated or associated to any pharmaceutical industry of the medications that I'm going to talk about. I don't get any royalties. I don't get any money. So what I'm going to tell you is the truth and nothing but the truth based on my clinical experience. I don't get any kickbacks. I don't get any kind of stuff like that. And I want to be very transparent. What I'm going to tell you may go against some people that don't agree with it, but it is my experience. And, you know, I've been in medicine since the year 1980. That's when I started my medical school. And I have seen a lot of stuff over these last 41 years. But this last year has been by far the worst. Just to give you an idea, during the month of July, I signed the most numbers of medical death certificates of my entire career. So that just gives you an idea of how bad this COVID is. So I'm available to answer questions as you guys ask. I think you are mute. You are still mute.
Okay, now
Now
that's
you
solved.
now I can hear you.
Right. Okay, before we head into the questions, we'd like to welcome Dr. Marivic Villa, who's a member of the FLCCC and CDC PH as well. Also, Dr. Huang Yang from Taiwan, Deputy Speaker Congresswoman Bernadette Herrera is joining us, and so is Angeli Valenciano. And those are just the names. Attorney Annette Gozon is here as well. Dr. Homer Lim, Edwin Rodrigo, Dr. Homer Limuez. Is that this? Okay, that might be a mistake there. And then Congresswoman Onyx Crisologo, Congressperson Onyx Crisologo. And that's our list for now. We'll be populating that list some more later on. Let's throw the first question, or the chance to throw first question, to Congressman Mike Defensor. Kong Mike? We're going to need to unmute Kong Mike. Well, while we're waiting for that to happen, let me ask Dr. Byron. Dr. Byron, have you ever caught COVID yourself in 389 days?
I don't know. And I'm being very honest, there were a couple of instances through 389 days where I actually felt very sick, where I had fevers, where I had chills. But unfortunately, somebody had to take care of patients, and I did not have a chance to rest. And guess what I did? I took ivermectin.
I was about to ask. Thank you.
And I took ivermectin, and I actually, within 3 days, I was fine. I didn't test myself, and I know that saying this in front of everybody is kind of bad, but the fact is that I care for a lot of indigent patients. I care for a lot of people that are probably not, I'm going to call it, they don't have a fully legal immigration status in the US.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't take care of them, nobody else will. Mm-hmm. Why? Because COVID is not financially interesting. They don't, you don't get paid for people that have no money. So trying to get somebody to cover those patients is very different and very difficult. So I would say, I think I did. I am fully vaccinated, which is good. But I still keep all my precautions. But you are correct. I mean, when you go to a COVID unit, 389 continuous days, you go in, it doesn't matter how much protection you get. I mean, sooner or later, you are going to get infected.
I'm sure the next question I'm going to ask you is in everybody else's minds, Doctor. What dosage did you take?
Well, I mean, the dosages, and we'll talk about the dosages at a later time. But I did treat myself with an actual treatment dosing. I took, at the time, and again, one of the things that you need to learn about COVID is that what I do today in COVID is not the same that I was doing 20 weeks ago. It's an illness that keeps on changing, and we keep on modifying everything we do. So we now have specific dosing, and those dosing options for some of the medications that we use, not just ivermectin. You can find them at our website at flccc.net. And I'll tell you the story about the FLCCC a little later. But at the time, I took 15 milligrams, because I'm kind of a heavy guy, 15 milligrams a day for 5 days for treatment. And that did the trick for me.
And nothing else? No antibiotics?
No antibiotics. No, absolutely not.
Okay. Do we have Congressman Mike unmuted already? Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Admin. Thank you, Mari. Dr. Varon, thank you so much for this opportunity. Your name is not only very popular here because of you're known as the COVID hunter, but you're also known as the doctor of Gary Valenciano. The wife is here. I saw Angeli here. But Dr. Varon, in the Philippines right now, there's so much debate about ivermectin. In fact, recently, the DOH and FDA declared it illegal to use. Now the police are now arresting those who are distributing or giving out ivermectin. Of course, that's not the question that I wanted to ask you, but in relation to your fight against COVID, do you think ivermectin is very critical in preventing and in helping those who are in the hospitals to recover, Dr. Varon?
That's a great question. So that actually brings me down to talk about the FLCCC, the Frontline COVID Critical Care Alliance. In March of last year, when all hell was breaking loose, we were trying to do things. We didn't know what worked, what didn't work. So at that point in time, 5 of us from the United States decided to create a small group of, I'm going to call it clinicians that were caring for patients, but we're also people that are very well educated in the medical field. Dr. Paul Marik, Dr. Pierre Corey, Dr. Jose Iglesias, and Dr. Humberto Meduri. We would have these Zoom meetings at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, looking at ways to fix COVID. COVID kills you by 2 mechanisms. Mechanism number 1, inflammation, a lot of inflammation. That, when your lungs get inflamed, you don't breathe, you die. But not only in your lungs, you get inflammation everywhere. Second way by which it kills you is excessive clotting. So when we realized this, we said, wow, we need to come up with a way by which, instead of fighting the virus like some of the other medications do, the remdesivir and stuff like that, we need to go and treat the active issues, inflammation and coagulation. So we created at that point our first protocol, which is called the MATH Plus protocol. And the MATH Plus protocol includes M-methylprednisolone, which is a steroid or cortisone-like agent, A, ascorbic acid, which you guys know as vitamin C, T, which is thiamine, which is another vitamin, and H, which is heparin. As we did this, we started to add more things into the mix. And, we were criticized. We were crucified. People said, you guys are crazy. You guys are going to give cortisone to somebody that's having an active infection. They're going to get worse. And surprise, surprise, people started to get better. At the same time, we started to use ivermectin in the hospital patients. And our results were amazing, but we didn't know why. So people started to use then ivermectin in the outpatient setting. And we created what is now known as the IMASC protocol. And again, all these protocols, all the medical rationale behind it, you can find it on our website at flccc.net. The reason why we did this is because people were dying, and we didn't want people to die. Your question, Congressman, is whether or not ivermectin is key on the treatment of patients. The answer is yes, but not just on the treatment, also on the prevention, on the prophylaxis of patients. Since then, we have endured in an uphill battle in the United States and around the world with institutions such as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the US, the Food and Drug Administration, the World Health Organization. And it is amazing that people don't understand. Ivermectin, and this is what I'm going to focus, ivermectin has been around for 4 decades. It is the winner of a Nobel Prize as a medication. Ivermectin has been used 3.7 billion times in the world. Billion, not a million, billion times in the world. Ivermectin is considered one of the top 10 medications of the World Health Organization when there are catastrophes. It is an anti-parasite drug. Yes, it's for parasites initially, but we have come to understand that ivermectin has amazing antiviral and anti-inflammatory properties. And not only that, we are now using it even for patients that have the post-COVID syndrome. 50% of people that have symptomatic COVID, they will end up having all these aches, pains, headaches, things like that in the long run. And we've been using it and it works. So the question that I'm sure some of you guys are going to ask is, why hasn't the WHO or the CDC or anybody else say, hey, go ahead and use it? And I don't have any answer for that because the data is amazing. We have data from Bangladesh, India, Egypt, Argentina, Mexico, Peru, it is incredible, where you start a massive campaign of giving ivermectin, and the numbers of cases of COVID just plummet. It is unreal. And yet, these big institutions, they say ivermectin should only be used in the context of a clinical trial. That's what they say. I mean, they do allow us, at least in the US, to use it off-label. So I don't have the police coming in and, grabbing us, at least not yet. But it's been an uphill battle.
Last question, Mari. Thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Varon, for that. I'd just like to ask, again, Dr. Varon, there are supposed advisors of the government that say that ivermectin can cause severe adverse reactions such as neurological toxicity or brain damage after taking the ivermectin protocol. In your experience, Dr. Varon, have you had any of those cases?
Well, again, I would use their own data against themselves. If it was such a bad agent, why is it on the top 10 list of the World Health Organization emergency medications? That would be number one. Number two, 3.7 billion doses, not one case reported of neurological abnormalities, not one. There is really there is only one contraindication for the use of ivermectin, and that is for people that have kidney transplants, that they take another medication to kind of help them with their immune system. And the levels of that medication may shift to some extent when you take ivermectin. So in those patients, you can give them ivermectin, just make sure that you check the levels of that other medication. But there are no contraindications. I mean, we're giving it to a lot of people, and it works. It works, but unfortunately, this is where all the drama begins. And I don't know how you guys do things in the Philippines, but I'll tell you, in the US, everything ends up being money. And this is where you have companies that are sponsoring medications that cost thousands of dollars to treat a patient with COVID, which actually don't even work, but like the remdesivirs and things like that, versus a $3 medication. That's where you start having that. It's a political situation, and I'm sure that Congressman, you know more about politics than I do, but we see that here in the States. So what I'm doing is basically fighting a political fight. I'm not talking about science. I'm talking about a political fight. Simple as that. Economical interests. Of course, nobody's going to want to, pay $3. Let's pay the $6,000, especially if you are the one that is producing the $6,000 medication.
Thank you so much, Dr. Varon, for giving your time to us and, of course, for educating us and the Filipino people. Maraming salamat.